Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA Nations race in Group 1 at Spa, our first ever race at Spa in Group 1. So this was a combination I was clearly looking forward to. Starting from pole position, it wasn't really a perfect lap if I'm brutally honest. There was probably about 2 temps to 3 temps available in the lap. We didn't massively hook it up. However, with this being a combination that was always going to suit myself, Group 1, high downforce, high speed, a track that I really like and I'm very used to from other games, still managed to get it on P1, so thoroughly happy with that. Quite a competitive lobby, you can see all the way through the grid, some very fast drivers in this race. So starting from P1, the best place you can start really. No dirty air for me. I do struggle with that in terms of getting the front end into a corner when I'm following another car. I don't really like following in Group 1. I much prefer being in the lead. So we're in the best position now to try and hold on. However, in P2 we have SDL Sonic, a very fast driver, and P3 Zavizic, I think I always probably say it wrong, but also a very fast driver. Started out mainly doing daily races, now venturing into the FIA races. So this is going to be a very hard race. Obviously we've had plenty of races in daily race against Zavizic, and now it's in FIA, starting from the best place possible, going through turn 1, braked a little bit late there. You can see obviously tyres not fully up to heat. You can see that I was actually running again the hybrid tyre compound, so we're running the hard tyre on the rear and the mediums on the front. Now what this does is it gets rid of your compulsory usage of the hard tyre, and it actually handled very nice with this car. Now it did take about, I'd say about 3/4 of a lap to warm the tyres up, but once them tyres were up to temperature, this car handled brilliant with this tyre combination. It really did work. It was much faster than running hard all the way around, because you still had a very strong front end as we use that mixture 2 through the corners just to try and save a bit of fuel. You can see revving out a little bit at the moment and trying to build a little bit of a cushion up. I didn't want the gap to be around 6-7 temps going onto any long straight, because the slipstream in these cars, when a car's following you, they're going to build up a really nice toe behind and possibly be able to go through an overtake in one of the corners. And like I say, one thing I don't like is following another car. So the aim at the moment is to build up a bit of a lead, use a bit of the revs. You can see revving out a bit more than I really should do at this stage. However, if it gives me the lead that I need, then I'd rather do that. You can see using mixture 2 through the corners. This is not just about saving fuel. Mixture 2 also will help with tyre wear, so it will look after the front tyres slightly going into these corners, and it will also help the rears on power. One thing that I do have trouble with on my Thrustmaster wheel, which you might see going through the race, is the dials are not very good. If I'm brutally honest, the fuel, especially the fuel one, I have a lot of trouble getting my fuel mixture to go into the actual mixture that I want. With the T-GT, it's supposed to be an advantage, you know, helps you out. However, it probably hinders me so much on this game, because when I'm trying to go into 1 mixture, sometimes it goes into 6 mixture, and you lose a lot of acceleration, especially with a car with a hybrid system like this, because you get the hybrid but you don't get the fuel to actually give you any acceleration. So it is a problem. I'm going to get my Thrustmaster T-GT wheel, probably the wheel rim, sent off at some point in the future and repaired, because it is still under warranty, but there's something clearly not right with it. You're going to see it in this race a couple of times. It's going to play up on me, and it actually loses me about 4 or 5 temps on one occasion, but we'll show you when we get to that. As you can see, building up a nice lead at the moment. You can see got myself out of the slipstream range, so this race is going very well. I'm not sure if SDL Sonic was on the hybrid tyre compound. Maybe he didn't like the feel of it, putting the mediums on the front, hards on the rear. But we got Zavizic in P3, who's going to go for a possibly move. Looked in the mirror like they were side by side, and you can see he's actually made that move into P2, and now he's going to obviously be chasing myself down. I'm not sure whether he's been saving, been using fuel on the opening lap. He probably used a bit of fuel to get past SDL Sonic, but now we've just got to concentrate on keeping it nice and smooth and consistent all the way to the end. With fuel is looking okay at this stage of the race. You can see we've used, like I said, a bit more than what we probably should have done. However, we can bring that back over the remainder of the track. As the fuel generally goes lighter on this game, your fuel consumption becomes better, just like in real life. So you end up using a little bit less fuel. As you've seen that little bit of a bollard in the middle of the track there, I saw that very late and just about avoided it. That could have been very costly. If you hit them in the wrong position on your car, it can just shoot the car in the air a little bit, and you lose all traction and you lose a lot of time. But you can see there now, with the dial trying to go into 1 mixture, it went up to 5, then back to 2, then eventually got it in 1. You can see my arm shooting up. I was really annoyed at that, because look at the delta now. it actually lost me about, I think it was about 4 or 5 tenths. We were about 2.4 seconds clear, and now it's down to 1.9. So because of that little mistake with the dial, we lose about 4 or 5 tenths because you just don't get the acceleration with the hybrid system coming out of that corner. So was a little bit frustrated because that's put P2 very close to my slipstream, and obviously now I'm going to have to possibly use a bit of fuel to try and make sure he doesn't get the slipstream to go for a move anywhere. However, the good thing about this track is, even though it's possible, it's hard for them to follow you in terms of through the corners, from this point now it's flat out all the way to the right hander at the end of the straight. So you go flat out all the way through here, no lifting, or even if you're in a slipstream you can follow flat out, and if they get your slipstream, I think they come very close to being able to go for a move. However, if you keep them around 1 second behind, I don't think they can actually gain a full second in the toe along that straight. So luckily, not really in a position as we skip through down up to lap 5 in this race. You can see the gap maintaining around 1.5 seconds. At the moment, we're doing all we need to do. What I'm trying to do is just maintain the gap around that. I don't mind giving P2 the slipstream in terms of getting him in my slipstream for the corners, because at the end of the day, it's probably a help for me to let him be within 1.2, 1.3 seconds in the corners, because then I can save fuel. He can't really gain time on me because he's going to be getting a lot of understeer. His car's going to be suffering with a loss of downforce, and I can just try and bring back the fuel a bit. You can see myself doing it there, going into mixture 4. I don't know if that was deliberate or if that was probably a mistake in the game. It's probably more likely that that was a mistake, as I was trying to go into mixture 2. It went up to mixture 4. Like I say, it's very sensitive, my dial. I think I need to maybe get this sorted as soon as possible, as it does cost me a bit of time, and it gets quite frustrating when you're trying to get the dial into the right setting and it just keeps moving from 2 to 5 to 3, etc. But at the moment in mixture 2, you can see saving that fuel back into mixture 1 there. One thing I did notice as well with P2 was our hybrids seem to be regenerating slightly different. Now this is very something that a lot of people won't even take into account, but your braking style, the way you brake, the way you trail brake, the way you brake for corners, the way you take corners, will have quite an impact on cars like this with the Audi R18, because it creates hybrid power due to your braking. So if people brake in a different way and take the corners slightly different with different braking methods through corners, you're going to generate your hybrid totally different, and that's going to give you acceleration in different areas of the track. I noticed it very much at Fuji a long time ago when driving the Porsche also. But as you can see, at the moment, everything seems to be working quite well. As we watch the replay camera, you can see that gap. It's stable around 1.3 to 1.6. It keeps fluctuating, but going into this final chicane, I always like to make sure that I just took it very easy getting on the power. Just get the car in a straight line, then use the power, wait for that hybrid, and wait for the car to be in a straight line before deploying that hybrid. And it kind of helps out. And again, for this right hander here, you can see myself squaring that car off very gentle on throttle, and then accelerate out, use the hybrid. You can see Zavizic has a different kind of approach. He was very early on the throttle. I think it was, if he gets it right, it's going to give him the benefit, but it kind of doesn't really get the exit grip that you need as we go through the top of the hill, working our way down into the braking zone. And again, you can see we're safely ahead here now. We can let him build up and go back into mixture 2, etc., mixture 3 maybe. Let him get within 1.2, 1.1 seconds, and then we just let him have our slipstream through here, which is not going to help him out at all. You can see through this section, he will just suffer with any dirty air if he's within the range. But at the moment, it looks like we've got this gap pretty much covered at this point of the race. We're both doing fuel saving. This was obviously a one-stop race to put the mediums on, because you didn't want to no-stop it. It was too slow at the end. One-stop race with a little bit of fuel saving in the Audi R18. There was some drivers that chose to use the Peugeot. The Peugeot was possibly the faster car if you all started together. However, like I say in these top split races, qualifying is so important. I would much rather qualify in a car that might be a few seconds slower in the race, but qualify at the front of the grid, than qualify down in P8, 10 or something like that in a car that might not be quite so fast in race conditions. So that's the method we went for this, as we've skipped through to the final lap before we go into the pits. We can see that from P5 down, actually pitted on the end of lap 7. Now that is the optimal time to pit in terms of your race, overall race pace, because you want to do your longest stint on the softer compound tyre at the end, when obviously your car is lighter, you've got the faster tyre on. However, I opted to stay out. Same for Zavizic. because I could see that there was, I think there was some cars that looked, they looked like they were close to being out the slipstream. I'm sorry, out of the range of the pitting when we came out. However, it was a bit of a risk, so what I wanted to do to play it safe was, we had a comfortable lead over P4 or 5, etc., was extend the stint. We should then be able to pit quite comfortably and come out in a nice clear bit of track, and let's see if this works out when we go in the pits and come out. But that is the plan, get in the pits on this lap and we should come out into clean air, and I think that's the same strategy that P2 had in mind. As you can see, the gap around 1.7 seconds, and I think he's going to try and get a lot closer before we pit. Not sure if we had a little mistake here. I have my little one as well. My daughter was trying to ask me questions through this stream. I was trying to race, and she was trying to ask me something that the missus had asked her, and I couldn't really hear what she was saying, so it was kind of a little bit distracting. I think I lost a bit of time on a number of occasions through this race. I think it was like 2 or 3 times. Probably lost me, I don't know, 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds throughout the race. But you can see that gap coming down from 1.7 to 1.3. So lost about half a second there on that one corner as we work our way down this straight. You can see, I think P2 obviously trying to get the slipstream now because he knows that we're going to pit on this lap. Going into the final corner, braking as late as possible, trying to make sure we brake a little bit earlier that time though, so that we can get in for this pit entry, a very awkward pit entry. You can obviously clip that wall if you're a little bit too aggressive, but we go in the pits, 2% less fuel than P2. Now that could be important. Let's see how that pans out for the rest of this race. As we now put on them fresh medium tyres, so we're not going to have the hard compound tyre on the rear, we're going to have the extra bit of traction. Now there are some areas of the track that this actually felt a little bit slow. I did notice that through turn 1 with hard tyres on the rear of the car with mediums on the front, you actually got a really good rotation on the car and were able to accelerate out of it really nicely. As you see that P2 has actually gained a little bit on me on that pit stop. We went into the pits actually pulling away. We were at 1 point, it was 9/10, it went to 1.1 I think as we entered the pits, but coming out the pits he's actually gained 3 or 4 attempts on me somehow. So not sure how, because we didn't put any fuel in. He wouldn't have put any fuel in, but he's had a slightly quicker pit stop, maybe 4 or 5 attempts quicker in the pits, and you can see he's right behind me there. However, again, we've got that advantage of being in P1. You can quite happily let a car sit there, and then you should be able to pull away, because they're going to lose a little bit of time through the corners. They're going to struggle with that dirty air, and they're going to struggle putting the power down in traction zones. But look how close this is. A race in top split. This is great. I've got P3 there in a Peugeot. I think that he might have been on a different strategy, maybe still needed to pit for tyres, or had maybe going for a 2-stop strategy. I'm not 100% sure what his strategy was. However, he's getting very close in this race. However, we've got the track position, and now we've got a fresh set of tyres, so we should be able to pull away from that Peugeot in this race, even though we're in the hybrid cars, which, like I say, were technically not the best cars for the race. However, it didn't actually work out like that. As you can see in this race, we're building up a massive, quite a considerable lead, and this was the thing that we said earlier on in practice sessions as well, was that if a few people decide to go the R18 for qualifying, then Peugeots have got to get past the Audi R18, which can be difficult, because even though it only generates a little bit of hybrid regeneration, if it's getting it through the corners where you need the acceleration, then the Peugeot is going to struggle to actually get into an overtaking position by the end of the straight. As you see, going over the line to start another lap, you can see that Peugeot getting very close there to Zavicic. However, it's not really, you can see the difference on acceleration out of that corner, how much the Audi pulls away. And again, this corner here, turn 1, you get a little bit of hybrid, which gives you that little boost going down the hill through a Rouge and a Redallion, and it really does help out in terms of your overall pace and going into the final, the corner at the end of this straight. So makes it very hard for the Peugeot to actually get an overtake done. You can see myself going over to the right hand side of the track, nearly broke the slipstream there. You can see it was at 1.4 seconds, and I was just trying to make sure that he didn't get too much of a slipstream, because I was thinking maybe we'll be able to pull away here a bit. But fuel saving needed. You can see into mixture free this time. Don't mind letting him get into that toe again. Maybe I could have done a little bit more mixture free usage through the corners to save a bit more fuel, because it didn't actually lose too much time, and I don't think it would have really have helped P2 too much, because he would have then just got more dirty air and probably suffered with more front end loss and not really gained any time. So maybe that's something to learn for next time in these Group 1 races, to maybe use a bit more mixture free through the corners. As long as you're back into one mixture for when the hybrid is needed and the acceleration zone is needed, then it should work out okay as we go through this lovely section of Spa. I really enjoy this section. It's so flowing, you're getting a really nice rhythm. It's a lot of 4th to 3rd, carrying speed on the power nice and early, using the curb, and flat out into this right hand corner. This is a really nice corner in these Group 1 cars with high downforce. It's completely flat, and again this is a completely flat left hander. In some cars, I think in GT3s it's a little bit trickier to take this flat. It is a flat out corner, however it's a little bit trickier to take that flat in the Group 3 cars, going through there and into the heavy braking zone, braking just after the 150 board, because you're carrying so much speed, trying to make sure we hook up these corners gently into second gear and gently on the power. You can see how we were holding that power at 50% throttle before we let the power go down and let the hybrid kick in. And you're going to see it again into turn 1, how we're very gentle. I'm very gentle on the throttle. You see there 30%, 50%, then a little bit of a gap before we get to a full 100% throttle. Again, just helping that the hybrid doesn't kick in too early as we wake our way down this straight. You can see that gap staying at a nice solid distance. We're able to maintain this at the moment. Fuel is slowly getting back to where we need. Also, you can see that it's gradually getting back as we skip through to the end of lap 13, start of the final 2 laps. You can see the gap has maintained very similar. You can see the consistent lap times on the right hand side. We were having obviously a little bit of an issue on the end of this race. If anyone wants to see the live stream, you can check that out on the channel. We were trying to talk to our little one while we were driving, and I was losing a bit of concentration. However, we did maintain reasonable consistency. I just think we lost out on, I think it was lap 10 and 11. We could have been a bit faster. You can see I've just set my fastest time on lap 13, which shouldn't really be the lap that you set your fastest time on. And what you can also see is after setting that lap, we can see that the gap has increased to around 1.6 seconds to P2. So I think at this stage, I have a feeling that P2 might have been doing a little bit of fuel saving for a few laps to try and give himself the ability to push on that final lap and maybe go for a move. Because if you want to go for a move, it's probably best time to do it on the final lap. However, I was just trying to keep my fuel in a reasonable condition. Also, you can see myself using different mixtures of fuel. It did actually go back to one mixture then by mistake. Again, the dial causing me a little bit of issues there where it went up to mixture 3 then back into one mixture. So we're going to use mixture 2 as much as possible. You see probably using it through here again helps the front end, doesn't really lose you too much in terms of speed because it's a fast corner. You end up just carrying speed, a little bit of loss of acceleration, but you can see the gap staying around 1.6 seconds, and that is the most important thing, just to keep looking after the fuel, do a bit of short shifting, and just ensure that I can use that one mixture on the straights, and if I do need to use some speed down the straights, that I have it there available as we go onto this back straight, using third gear through there, shifting up to fourth, a little bit of a short shift, then probably going back to one mixture, yeah, straight away there for this straight. Maintaining that gap still at 1.4 seconds. Now he's going to probably push as much as possible. Now you can see that delta decreasing, so he is 100% pushing now, using up the revs, probably saved up the fuel. He's going to try and get as close as possible for this final lap to go for a move as we go into the chicane, trying to make sure we hook it up nice and easy. Don't want to take any risks obviously on this final lap. We're just trying to keep it smooth. We're not pushing 100%, we're driving at about 90%, 95%, keeping that consistency. That is really important, that we don't lose a big margin anywhere as we go into the braking zone. Again, hooking that up nicely, gently on the throttle. You can see running a little bit wide there, but didn't lose a massive amount of time. And I think P2, if you looked in the mirror, had a little bit of moment on the throttle, maybe lost him half a tenth as we go up the hill now onto this long straight. And again, you can see that that gap should be okay. It's about 9 tenths now, so I'm going to keep the short shift in, and obviously mixture, you can see going into mixture 3. I don't mind letting him into that dirty air. It's a tactic I was using. Let him get into it through this section here, because then he's not really going to be able to gain too much through here, because you just, especially with the worn tyres, once your tyres have worn, then it's going to be even harder to maintain front end grip. And you can see every time we get to the corners, even though I'm in fuel saving mode, I'm able to keep that gap either static or increase it in general. But then on the acceleration zones, P2 is going to probably gain a little bit of time as he's using up a little bit more revs. He's probably got a little bit more fuel, but you can see again back up to 1 second that gap there, and this is the strategy that I was going for, and it's actually worked out quite nicely as we go through to the final few corners. Now all I have to do now at this stage of the race is keep it nice and smooth, keep it consistent, no mistakes, and we should have a win in this top split FIA Nations race, and taking away quite high points. I think it was 340 something. We'll check that out, what the points were at the end of the race as we go through the final corner, trying to make sure we hook up the apex. Nicely done there. Back into one mixture now on the straight. We've got that gap at 1.2 seconds. we've got this covered. There's no need to push the final chicane. You're going to see me take it very easy into fuel mixture free just to make sure I've got the fuel. I think I had it anyway, but into mixture free there, you can see 0.23 laps of fuel remaining, should be plenty. So we go into the final chicane, braking on that 150 very early, not taking any risk. You can see how much time that P2 gained on me, about nearly 6-7 tenths on this final sector, but no point taking risks. We go over the line, keeping it in mixture free, still had 0.1 laps of fuel left, so we could have used one mixture fuel all the way to the end probably. But like I say, no point taking any risks. We took it nice and easy in that last chicane. Probably lost out on a chunk of time, but we take the win, no mistakes, and a very, very solid drive in this top split race. And again, showing why I do like these Group 1 races in GT Sport, especially at real life tracks that I'm used to from other games. So we come away with 300 and I think it's 49 or 48 or something like that. Let's have a little look as the points come up on screen. It's 348 points, a nice amount of points to take away from this top split race, and some nice points from the Nations Championship that hasn't actually started too well for myself, so that gives me a nice bump up in the points. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit that subscription button on the screen at the moment, and make sure you hit that notification button so you don't miss any streams and any other videos in the future. Thanks again for watching, everyone. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all very soon.